so you now have photographic evidence of the queen that you are.
Oh my.
Greetings, everyone. Joe Diamond here. I am literally a day away from getting my hair cut, actually. Feels kind of good. I'm going to leave my hat off for this, keep the messy quarantine hair going, getting a cut tomorrow. Anyway, this is it's a very unconventional release. I'm torn back and forth about releasing it, so I'm doing this currently as a Facebook Live lecture. We got a couple people watching already. Hello. This is basically a lecture of one of my biggest workhorse routines from the last year, and I felt weird about releasing it because I don't, in a traditional sense, because there's so much of it that is from so many other sources. And so I figured this would be a perfect opportunity to talk about originality. The famous quote, art is, or originality is the art of concealing your sources. I think if someone saw this, they would think it was very, very original and very out of nowhere, but there's a lot of things coming together. First things first, it is based very heavily on Ozzie Wynn's Gypsy Queen. If you don't have this, you should get it. It's also going to make one aspect of this effect very easy should you choose to do it in some form of another. First things first. On Scam School, David Rangel shared a routine where he forced a six of spades and had a female participant take a selfie with the card and then pointed out then he apparently found the card. He says, no, I didn't find the card, I found the selfie, and then did the classic thing of showing on a card, on a six of spades, that she's holding what kind of look like six spades right there. And I did that for a long time. In fact, I did at a graduation party, and one girl loved it so much at the graduate. She said it was her favorite thing she had seen at the whole party. I was like, that's pretty high praise for someone who booked a mentalist for a graduation party, and this was their favorite thing. By the way, this is the time to come out. I am a card magician in sheep's clothing. I love card magic. It's my first love. I do it so much. I have a whole show that is nothing but mentalism with cards, and a whole other show which is all traditional card magic. I love routining, I love Card College, I love Card College Light, I love the Chicago Sessioners, all of it. I love it. I'm coming out. I don't care. I'm saying this is my group. I wouldn't do this on one of the mentalist pages or bizarre pages where they go, oh, I'm coming out. I'm saying it. So I love this. I stopped doing it literally the night a woman literally said to me, well, that's kind of a stretch. So it was on opposite ends of the spectrum. It was either really great or not so much. So, but again, it's something, released on Scam School. It's not a bad idea, the selfie and everything else. But, so I dropped it from my repertoire, and I really missed it. Later that same year, my former student and now wonderful close-up magician, Kevin Capinos, fried me with Ozzie Wynn's Selfie Queen. I loved it. It's great. The moment it went back on the market, I bought it. It doesn't really fit me, but I wanted it. It was just like, this is such a cool method. It's such a cool premise. I had to buy it. So I did. And I performed it for my fiance, a couple friends, and it was going great. All at the same time. See, this is what I'm talking about. All these different influences coming together. Around that same time, last year in 2019, this was one of my study guide books, John Bannon's Destination Zero. Highly recommend it. It's put out by Squash Publishing, and it has some great stuff in here. And I was playing around with a couple effects, and one of the effects I was really playing around with was Perennial. It's on page 52. And it was basically a happy birthday trick. It was a card in an envelope. The envelope said happy birthday on it. And it was really great. I really loved it. I played around with it. I even did it a couple times at my restaurant gig, and a couple of the staff really loved it. They really loved it. But it was hard. I kept having to set up the envelopes to give away as happy birthday, and that's fine. It's a great souvenir, but I still had to carry all these envelopes with all these extra cards and happy birthday on them. And when you're a full-time working professional, I mean, lately in quarantine we've had nothing but time, but when you're working 3-4 nights a week, and hopefully we'll get back to that point later on, you know, every aspect where you can save time is great, but at the same time, I do believe the people who put the work in, it really separates the artists from the practitioners, in my opinion. I love Eugene Berger's Burned card, and I've been doing it in close-up work, and for years I wondered, why haven't I done this, and why don't more people do it? When I started doing it regularly, I realized, oh, it's because it's a lot of work to set up. Set up one of these cards, it takes about 5 minutes, and you know, so, but I do that work because I'm willing to, and I know others aren't. So that's another way to set yourself apart, is to, you know, do the work. Take the hard choice when it's rather than the easy choice. This was a lot of hard choices that eventually came together to be the easiest choice. So let me make that clear. So we've got Bannon, we've got David Rangel with the selfie, we've got Ozzy Wind with Gypsy Queen. These are all separate. And last year they all kind of met, all their paths kind of overlapped in my head, and it came out to this. After trying it in front of live people, in front of audiences, the routine basically wrote itself. I'm going to do a non-person performance of it, and then we'll break down the method. I don't think this is going to fool a lot of well-read card magicians and mentalists, especially since, you know, I'm not doing it live for someone right now. But again, if you look at the reaction video I have at the beginning of this, and look at how look at the people in the photos as well and how happy they are, I think you'll agree this is a great worker. So has nothing to do with the piece, but I'm going to put it right there so that it does not blow away in the wind. So here's how I would present it in a set. One of the things we like to believe is that every day knowledge is increasing, and part of that is because of our phones. You know, I'm talking to my phone right now, but in some ways we're losing knowledge. Let me explain. How many phone numbers did you have memorized when you were younger? 10, 8, doesn't matter. How many do you have memorized now? Like, I don't even know my fiance's phone number, but I remember the phone number of my first girlfriend from middle school. Well, later middle school, 8th grade. So that's what I mean, we're losing knowledge. But in many ways, we're gaining knowledge because of our phones. So I want you to think of a phone number. It can be a phone number you use currently, an old phone number, it doesn't matter, okay? I would then hand the deck to a spectator and have them break the deck in half and give it a thorough riffle shuffle, and maybe even have them stop and then have another spectator come together and push them together. So great, we'll start with the card shuffle. Remember, you shuffled the cards. Give me a digit out of the phone number. It can be out of the area code, middle, or end. Give me a digit, and let's say they give me the digit 5. I say, great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, give me another digit, anywhere. Let's say they say 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Give me a third digit. Let's say they say 0. 0. Do you want to add one more digit, or do you want to stay here? Let's say they decide to add a digit. They decide to add 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. I now have the spectator pick up that packet. They pick up that packet. I explain to them to hold it in their hands like this, do as I do, just cut anywhere you want, and then put the rest on top at a weird angle. It's your choice. So let's say the spectator cuts the deck and then puts the rest at an angle like that. I say, perfect. Quick recap, you shuffled the cards. My camera's been here the whole time. You have a camera on your phone, right? This packet was determined by a phone number, so open up your camera phone, because in a moment you're going to take a selfie. Okay, so in a moment you're going to take a selfie. And they get it all ready. I say, now before you take the selfie, you're going to take a selfie with a card. I'm just going to use 2 fingers. You're going to take a selfie with this card. I hand it to them. I say, now keep in mind, you could have cut one card more, one card less. If you had decided not to add a number to this pack, you added a 7 at the end. If you decided to do that, there would be 7 less cards in this packet, which would have altered how you cut, which means you'd be taking a selfie with a different card right now. So the woman takes a selfie. I say, make it a good one. Make it Instagram worthy. Snap. They do, and they put the phone on the table. Now, I'm filming this on my phone, so I can't do this exactly the same way, but they put the phone here, the photo of them holding the card there. And I say, that's great. Now, keep this in mind. Quick recap. You shuffled this deck at the beginning, remember? You chose a phone number. You chose random numbers out of that phone number to create a packet. You cut that packet, arriving at this card. Would you agree that this photo of you holding the 9 of clubs is a truly random outcome? They say yes. I say, great, because I also have a camera. And inside of here, there's also one card. Would you be amazed if my prediction matched exactly? They say yes. And I turn it over. Wah, 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 wah. I say, no. See, in the photo, I see a beautiful queen, and she's holding the 9 of clubs. And in the playing card, let me bring this up really close, you'll see there's also a beautiful queen, and she is also holding the 9 of clubs. I then give them back their phone and say, keep that photo on your phone and even post it to prove to everyone of the queen that you really are. And that's the routine. That's the performance. So there's a lot going on here. There's also some very heavy Eugene Berger and Benjamin Earl influence in this as well. So again, all these different resources, all these different inspirations coming together into one effect. This effect, I've closed with this effect. I usually close with Out of This World when I'm doing a show at like the Maxwell Mansion. If you've seen that couch, or where I filmed a virtual Q&A, if you see that movie room, it's my favorite room to perform in because I can do a whole set in there. This does come towards the end of it. I do kind of take a break and chat with people after this because it is a beast. It is a longer piece. It's not quite as punchy as something like Selfie Queen or the original David Rangel idea, but it really works for me. It's constantly picked as a favorite, and the photos are shared on social media. So let's go over, first things first. You need a regular deck, and you need a queen holding a card. Now, I would suggest, again, you use a queen that's actually holding a card, not just a classic Queen of Spades. There are lots of ways to get this card. Number one, you can buy Gypsy Queen. You will have many options for this. I do not want to expose the brilliant method of Gypsy Queen, but let me just say, if you get it, you will be able to do that trick, you'll be able to do this, and you'll have a lot of options, particularly for this trick. Just look at I'm gonna bring these closer again so you can really see the difference. Like, that's kind of a card on the Queen of Spades, but that's definitely a card on the Queen of Hearts. If you don't have the budget to get Gypsy Queen, there are some cards on the market. This is from a David Blaine deck that have a card printed on the card that the Queen or one of the other picture cards is holding. If you can't find one of these, my good friend Christian Cagigal, when he was quite young, he cut out of a card, of a actual playing card, I think he said he used the King of Hearts, he cut out a hand, like very tiny, with tiny scissors, trimmed it out, and then glued it to a picture card with a mini card glued down as well, which could have a certain handmade charm. Some people might say, oh, isn't it printed stronger if it's printed? I think someone could really make that work, especially with this effect. Let me talk about how I would do that, because with the printing, they're not going to see it right away. There's a nice delay, like with the original Gypsy Queen and in David Rangel's original idea. I like that delay. It's not really a sucker trick, it's more of a misunderstanding. That's why I don't like to show it as, oh, I screwed up. Oh, but wait, I don't play it as that. I play it as, look, I nailed it. Oh, sorry, I see the world in a different way. Let me explain. That's the tone I go for with it, and it works really well for me. And that's something I want to talk about too, particularly with mentalism, which is the reveal. Years ago, I saw Richard Osterland on one of his videos. He says we get so wrapped up in methods and technique and fairness, and sometimes it just comes down to how you show the prediction. And I think this is a perfect example of that. So, once you get your card, whether you hand make it, whether it's out of a marketed deck on the market, this I think was from the David Blaine Stripper deck or Svengali deck, and it came with one of those cards, and it was on sale in, like, you know, toy stores, you know, so these cards are gettable. Worst case scenario, you can do what my friend Christian Casual did and make one. In this case, I've got the 9 of clubs, and it's here. I would recommend at the very least getting a couple, so if you do this with regularity, if people do look at the other selfies, you usually can't see if they take a selfie of this actual card. You can't really see it, but if they do compare, if they tag you on social media and there's pictures of people with their selfies, which is the case currently, for me right now, I can go in and find a lot. I've even posted some of them. You'll see that they're different cards. So I think there's something to be said for that, being able to do this with different cards. I wouldn't switch it out every night, but, you know, or I would usually switch it out every week. Usually every couple nights I'll switch out the card. I then put it in an envelope. I got a stamp. This is all, these nice envelopes are from Hobby Lobby. The stamp's from Hobby Lobby. So we got a camera, so it makes sense why there's a phone, there's a camera. It kind of ties it all together in a nice, beautiful way. So that's the setup. Let's really do a deep dive on the real method of this. By the way, I'm glad so many people are watching this live. If you're watching this after the fact, I'm doing this as a Facebook Live to my private Facebook group, and I'm thrilled people are loving it and watching it and sticking around for it. We'll do when I'm done explaining it, I'll give myself a good sense to cut. So when I post this later, I can take your questions, and it's not going to not make sense to people who watch this later and can't read the comments. So, with all that said, let's go into the full-on method. This is pretty much John Bannon's card forcing method with a little dash, a little seasoning of Benjamin Earl in it. So you get whatever your force card is on top, and I usually do this after, if you've gotten my free download 2 routines, which is currently free. I'll be adding a price to it soon, but if you've gotten that download 2 routines, I have a routine in there that uses the patio force, and after that routine, because I'm taking cards out for that routine, I usually stack this card during that routine, so at the end I can take those cards, put them in, and now I'm ready to go for this. This is a perfect lead in after that. I might set it aside and do another non-card piece, and then maybe use this to come back to the cards. So force cards on top. I do some shuffles while doing the opening preamble, which is similar to a Eugene Burger line. Every day knowledge is increasing. In some ways we're losing knowledge. Let me explain how. He uses it for a completely different effect. It's about matches, but I use it to make it about phones. Because again, I want to connect the photo, the phone, the cards, the prediction. I want it all to kind of flow together. Very much like the influences of this trick. So, I start off by having them shuffle the deck, and this is a great idea of John Bannon. Keep track of where the top card is. I usually cut the deck, and I should cut the deck in half for them, and I cut a little deep so that the top card, I don't know if you'll be able to see this on camera, but like you can see this stack is much, much higher than this one. So the odds of the top card staying on top when a spectator shuffles them is pretty high. Now in that case, it did not happen. You'll notice the top card, let me put it face up so you can track it better, did not land on top. I say push them together, but not all the way. Here, in fact, and I might even reach over and spread them out and say, look at the cards going together, and then tell someone else to push them together. And I count 1, 2, okay, my force card's third from the top. So they push them together, square them up. I say, give me a number, and I'll deal down that number. So if you tell me 2, I'll deal down 2. If you tell me 9, I'll deal down 9, okay? And now look, my force card's right back on top. So let me do that face down so you can see. So cut the deck, shuffle the cards together. All right, okay, don't push them together yet. Let's spread those out so you can see the cards really being mixed. I'm counting just 1. And push together, feel them out. In a moment, you're going to give me a digit out of the phone number, and I will deal that number down. Whatever you say. If you say 4, I'll deal down 4 cards. If you say 5, I'll deal down 5. That's exactly how I would do that here. Of course, if the 9 of clubs stays on top, like that time, you just have them push it together and say, remember, you shuffled the cards at the beginning of this. You can't have the spectator do the dealing. I do the dealing at this part. The trick is already very, very long. I've kind of made this into an epic piece, so I want to keep the pace going a little bit, so I do the dealing. I have not noticed, I've noticed for me it makes the effect stronger, because I think just the pacing is way better. So they say a number, and I deal, relatively slow for a low number and fast for a high number. They say 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I would also keep it very clear, like slow here and then fast down, to make it very clear you're not doing any second deals or anything like that. Not that lay people think in these ways, but I do think they feel in these ways. They feel when they think you're doing something sneaky while you're dealing cards or something. So that's fine. The idea is you want a substantial pile. You don't want like 3 or 4 cards here. You want a substantial pile. If they say 3 low numbers, like let's say they say 2, 1, and then 4, I'll then say, all right, pick one more number, the highest digit in the phone number at that point. And then do another one, then you'll usually get like 9 or 10, and that's usually enough at that point. And then, after this, you do the cross-cut force, or the crisscross force, or what there's a million names for it. I believe it is the cross-cut force. I learned it as the crisscross force when I was a kid, so that sometimes slips out. I believe invented by Max Holden, and Ben Earl has some lovely, lovely work on this force, and a variety of different releases from him. I tell them to pick them up. I say, remember, if you had set a higher number, there'd be more cards in that packet right now, right? And I find, really driving home these points throughout the routine really, really helps. So, that happens. I say, hold the cards in your hand, do as I do. I find, because people, they can become all thumbs with cards too, especially when you ask them to cut and all this. So I say, go ahead, pick them up, keep them face down, because sometimes people will do this and you don't want them seeing the bottom card. I say, pick them up, keep them face down, hold them in your hand and do exactly what I'm about to do. Cut as many cards as you want to the table. They do. And then I say, and take the rest and put them on top, but at a weird angle. And I try to get that out before they do this. Once or twice I say, put them on top, and they go, boom. It's kind of like, pull the lever at the count of 3. It's like one of those things I say. Another line I sometimes use is, cut the cards, and before you put them on top, put them at a weird angle. It's your choice, which is a great idea of Ben Earl, because this also gives them another layer of choice of what angle they're going to go at, right? So they do that over here, and since the 9 of clubs is the first card they dealt down, it's on bottom, they cut. It's a lot of smoke around, not a lot going on. It's a lot of presentation around what's going on. I take this moment to recap the effect, and particularly the dealing, because I want them to remember, the image I want them to remember, a story I want them to remember is, I picked a phone number, he dealt down that many numbers, and then I took a selfie with that card. I kind of want that to be painted in their mind a little bit when they're talking about this later on. If they remember the cutting, that's fine. I've found it does not alter the power of the effect for a layperson in the slightest, so I've noticed this really works. So I make a big deal. You shuffled the whole deck at the beginning, right? Right. If you had named another number, there'd be a different amount of cards in that pile, which would have affected how many cards you cut off, right? All this is making sense. All this is coming together. And now I say, open up your phone. So now we're on the table, even if we're over there. We're over there. One other thing I point out is I put this out a couple routines ahead of time, and I say, we'll come back to this later on. So it's there, it's a presence, but I don't make a big deal of, like, this is the prediction. I should put it under my close-up case or leaning up against the box or something along those lines. I say, good, because I'm just going to use 2 fingers. I pick up cards, and I say, you're going to take a selfie with this card, okay? I then peel it off for them, And say, in fact, before you do that, I want you to see if you'd cut one card more, one card less, you'd be taking a different photo. They agree. And they take the selfie, and I almost always will take this packet and or pick up a card from this packet and say, go ahead and take a selfie, and I show them that I want them to see the card in the selfie, because you don't want them doing this. You want them to do this. Once they've done that, I think putting the selfie and not the card, but the selfie on the phone is a great image. When you do this and that goes down the first time, you know what's coming here. It's going to feel very, very good. I kind of put the cards away, but I don't put them like in my pocket, because just in case they want to come back and look at the deck, make sure it is the only card, only 9 of clubs in there. Again, as a presence, I wouldn't even put them fully in the box. I would more put them in the box. I'm just putting them in the box now, so they, in case a gust of wind comes, because I am outside, comes and blows it away. I make a big deal, say, you took that with your camera. Well, I have a camera here. And inside, I also have a card. The great thing about the Ozzy, I don't want to talk too much about the Ozzy win trick, because it's not mine to give away. But those of you who know it, know at this point, I can do a double check. If I see 9 of clubs here, I can check right now to make sure there's going to be a 9 of clubs when I turn this over. So if I did forget to reset the card or anything like that, I can still save it. I can put this away and go, let's do this one more time, or let's give it another try before this even gets turned over. I haven't ever done that, but I just like knowing I've got that little insurance for this. And now turn it over, I say, a perfect match. Now, I can leave this on the table. Sometimes I turn it over and they've reacted right away, which is fine. But I want there to be a little bit more. So I actually pick it up and I keep it in motion. I say, a perfect match. And I kind of wiggle it. I talk about it, you know. No, really, a perfect match. I don't try to point right at the card. I try and point a little higher. So again, they don't go there too quickly. And I lay it right next to the camera. And different people are going to realize it at different times. Say, in the photo, I see a beautiful queen, and she's holding the 9 of clubs. And sometimes I just come over to here, and that's when they start to react. Sometimes they come in really close. It depends on your laying situation, the age of the participants, all of that. And at that moment, you know, pandemonium. What's fun is sometimes I'll then have the person take the selfie with this card. So it's kind of like a selfie-ception, which is kind of really, really fun. Which I really love about this. And the great thing about this, they now have a souvenir on their phone. They have a photo. This goes back in your wallet, and you can do, or in the envelope. If you want to keep it in your wallet, you can. But you are now reset to do this again. You can give out an infinite amount of souvenirs, basically, without having to reset props. I think that's got a lot going for it. A lot going for it. Couple performance tips, and then we'll wrap up. Number 1, I do this effect, not to be ageist, but I do this effect for younger people. I'd say, or younger energy people, because there are older people who have great eyesight, they're very energetic, and they take a million selfies, and they're great at social media, all that stuff. The worse they are at technology, the phone's another thing for them to get clumsy with. Older women do appreciate being called queens, you know, and having photographic evidence. Once you finally get there, it's fine, but you do have to kind of judge. But the other thing you don't want is them not being able to see this, because it's seeable, but it is also tiny. You want to make sure, if it is going to be an older person, I see if there's glasses on their head, so they can do that. These are the kinds of things you do have to check in for. Some of you won't have that problem. In the places I work and the clientele I work for, it's something I do have to be mindful of. Second of all, I do usually do this in the middle of a set where they keep the deck of cards. In fact, the effect I do after this is usually out of this world. This is kind of the showstopper before the finale, where they keep the deck and everything else. So I do like that. Now, the other thing I like about it is that it holds up with Out of This World, because there is some procedure, there's a table, all this stuff. I don't do this if there isn't a table. I could just do a simple, say stop, here, look, take a selfie with that card, or even a slip force. If I did more 2 or 3 minute sets at like a cocktail party. I used to do that a lot more back in the day. Or I used to do street performing at Six Flags Great America. I would probably do one of those forces if I were to do that then. I do save this for VIPs, for people who are really into it. I try to pick people who I know will post it and maybe tag me and share about it, you know, that kind of thing. I really am mindful of when and where I do this. I want to be able to have some time with it. I have closed shorter sets with this. I have done this, and I'm filming this at the last day of May. Tomorrow is June 1st, and I have been doing social distance, 6 feet apart, close-up shows at one of my venues. There's a nice little movie room theater. If they sit in the couch, it's a big red couch. If you've looked at my virtual Q&A video, that's where I filmed it. They're usually sitting where I'm standing in that video, and I'm where the camera is. And so it still feels intimate despite being distance. I have a no contact set, and then I have a card magic or card mentalism set, which is minimal contact. I break open a fresh deck. We all wash our hands. We all use hand sanitizer. And at the end, I let them keep the deck because, you know, I don't want to use the same deck for another group. So if I'm going to do a whole set of mentalism with this deck of cards, I'll probably take a break in the middle and do something like billets or something more along the lines of Mark Striving's Warm Fuzzies Close-Up. You know, just to kind of not make it feel all like cards. But then usually the last 2 pieces will almost always be this and Out of This World. Sometimes I'll skip this. Sometimes I'll go straight into Out of This World. Sometimes I will just close on this. If that's it, I say, here you go. You know, you've got the photo. Here's the deck. Thank you, and move on. I do like leaving them with the deck, you know, separated face up and a face down at the end of Out of This World. I feel that makes it more real. So I do think placement of this is really good. Who knows how life's going to be? I might in 2 years be doing cocktail parties again and just do, you know, I might be doing the original Gypsy Queen or just forcing the card for this. Which brings me to my final little theory on card forces. I think if you're going to do this effect, the force needs to be exceedingly fair. Exceedingly. Like, this is on the table, it feels hands off even if you're doing the dealing. That's what I really like about this. I would not use this force. Say stop. Go and take the card. Because what they're going to think, the effect they're going to have later on is, well, what would have happened if I had picked a different card? How did he know I was going to end up with that? Well, he had me say stop at a card. How did I select the card? He had me say stop. And then he did a weird thing with the deck. Maybe it was something there. Something about it. You know, again, they might not be able to put their finger on it. It might feel discrepant, but they can't quite put their finger on it. I would be willing to do a more traditional slip force where I slip it, because you can say, do you want to stay there, keep going, or start over? Well, look, you could have said stop at an earlier card. I usually push it back so I can see, so I can usually see right there that I'm forcing the proper card as I'm doing this. That's a nice little tip. One other little bonus for those of you who stick to the end. I have done that as a glimpse too. They say stop, and I don't slip. I say, look, you could have said stop at an earlier card. It's funny, I actually see the 9 of spades right now. Say, but you said stop right here, go ahead, take it. So that's something I have built into this. So there's a little bonus for you. I like the Classic Force a lot. I don't know if I would use the Classic Force for this, personally. It might actually help if they're holding their phone, because they're a little... their hands are crowded. Go ahead, take a card. You can kind of just get away with putting that in their hands. If you want to change your mind, okay, good. Take a selfie with that card. The other thing, though, too, that I would say be careful about, because people will be secretive about the identity of their card. Like, oh, you want me to tell you, or you want me to show you? Whereas with this, you just say, you're going to take a selfie with this card. I'm not trying to guess it. Now, before you do that, I want you to see. I'm not trying to guess the card. We've just arrived at a card for them to take a selfie at. So there's not as much heat on that moment. that there would be with other more traditional forces. I wouldn't do the Crosscut Force on its own, speaking of which as well. I love the Crisscross Force. I think in this way, I think if you've got the table, you've got the time, you're going to do this, I think there's a way for them to, because it's more of a random selection, not really a choice, whereas the numbers are a choice and them dealing, so I feel that's a better flow for this. That's my own hot take on forces of this kind. So yeah. Now, one final thing I would request of everyone, and this is kind of what I want to bring home with this lecture, which is I've told you about all the different resources and how they've all come together with all of this. I've done my best to credit. I've done my best to explain what I can, where I can, all of that, and bring it all together. You could theoretically go out to a restaurant gig or a cocktail party and do this exactly as I did. I would suggest finding a different presentation. Take the selfie. That's a David Rangel idea. It's published on Scam School. It's allowable for us to do. If you're going to do the Force, that's, but I would like to hold on to my script and my presentation. If you want to use it as inspiration for you, as I took bits and pieces of inspiration from other people, go ahead and do that. Just make sure I'm not your only source of inspiration for this. Another line I'm thinking is plagiarism. Plagiarism is when you steal from one resource. Research is when you steal from a bunch of different resources. Speaking of stealing and resources and all this stuff, Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. It's great. Highly recommended. Read it. You'll love it if you're an independent artist and creative, magician, mentalist, whatever you are. Highly recommend that. I hope you take this as one piece of the journey for something for you. I'm hoping there's something in all of this that is useful to you. Please, if you're able to, give patronage to Ozzy Wind for Gypsy Queen and John Bannon for the Force procedure. This is in one of the videos. He has a Move Zero DVD set. It's called Perennial. Just look for that in the contents of one of those. If you're going to do this as is, I would recommend supporting where these ideas came from. That's my request. That's my one request. So, all that said, thank yous very, very much. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this, especially all the way to the end. Take care. Again, I'm at Joe Diamond Live on all platforms.